Lawmakers are demanding answers following Saturday's attempted assassination of former President Trump. President Biden directing the Secret Service to increase protection for former President Trump and to add protection for fellow candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
And joining us now, two New York congressmen from opposite sides of the aisle pushing for enhanced Secret Service protection for all three presidential candidates. Democratic Congressman Ritchie Torres, and from the Republican National Convention there in Milwaukee, Republican Congressman Mike Lawler. Good to see you both, and thanks a lot for being with us. So, Congressman Torres, we'll start with you. President Biden has now directed the Secret Service to increase protection for Kennedy and former President Trump. What do you make of that announcement? And tell us about this proposed legislation and how it would work.
Well, I fully support the actions of the president, and I'm partnering with my colleague, Republican Congressman Mike Lawler, on a bipartisan basis to introduce legislation that would enhance Secret Service protection by law so that we can address these issues in the future. You know, for me, the attempted assassination of a former president is a massive security failure that cannot be swept under the rug. The United States was only an inch away from a national catastrophe. If the former president had moved his head ever so slightly rightward, he would have been murdered. It would have been a national catastrophe. And so what prevented this from becoming an even greater crisis was not the skill of the Secret Service, it was luck. And we cannot depend on luck when it comes to the protection of presidential candidates.
Congressman Lawler, the House Oversight Committee is going to hold a hearing about this attempted assassination next week. The Secret Service director is expected to appear at that hearing before the committee. What is it that you want to hear from her?
Well, look, as my colleague just pointed out, but for the grace of God, we would be having a very different conversation. And I think in this moment, the federal government needs to ensure the safety and security of these candidates. And so, number one, obviously, I think the director of the Secret Service needs to inform Congress as to what steps are being taken to enhance security measures. Number two, obviously, we need answers. The fact that an armed gunman was able to get on that rooftop with a clear line of sight and get shots off, including one that pierced the former president's ear, but for a millimeter's difference would have killed him. We need answers as to how that security breach happened, where the breakdown in preparation was, where the breakdown in communication was. Reports are indicating that the gunman was in the sights of law enforcement for upwards of 25 minutes. That, you know, there were 3 snipers inside the building as opposed to stationed on the roof. So obviously there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. But to me, in this moment, what is critical is this. Our elections should be determined by votes at a ballot box, not by violence at a rally. And the Secret Service has an obligation to ensure the safety and well-being of President Trump, President Biden, and RFK Jr., whose family has twice been victim of political assassination.
Congressman, let's talk about the other big news that's coming out of Milwaukee right now. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance is now the former president's running mate. He was on GMA3. He said he would be disappointed if he did not get the job. He has the job now. So what do you think about this pick?
Look, this is a blue-collar, working-class guy who grew up from humble beginnings. His grandmother that raised him was a Blue Dog Democrat. He enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps after 9/11, served in Iraq, came back, built a successful venture capital business, and has clearly risen up in the ranks through the Republican Party pretty quickly. I will say that I think I have a little bit better beard, but you know, I think he's going to provide a new voice and a new perspective in the party, especially for working class Rust Belt voters in the Midwest. That's going to determine the outcome of this election, especially in Wisconsin, where we are, Michigan, and Pennsylvania.
All right, and Congressman Torres, while we have you, following the first presidential debate, you wrote on X, and I want to quote you, "What matters is not how we feel, but what the numbers tell us. An unsentimental analysis of the cold, hard numbers, which have no personal feelings or political loyalties, should inform what we decide and whom we nominate." Should President Biden remain your party's leader?
Well, look, the security concerns that are weighing heavily on members of Congress has crowded out a conversation about who should be the Democratic nominee. So I suspect President Biden will become the Democratic nominee. and we have to ensure that he wins because the stakes are too high. You know, what is at stake are reproductive rights, democracy, LGBTQ rights. So I'm fully committed to ensuring the election of President Biden.
New York Congressman Ritchie Torres and Mike Lawler, thank you both so much for being here.
Good to see you.